staring at a burning sun. Got teeth like razor blades, and you know that we're out for blood. We're out for blood.
All right, wow, that was totally quick. Here we are. Okay. Hey, so we got this update thing. Let's talk about it. Hey, captains, we're new captaining you, and hey, we're gonna do some stuff. So, hey, added new faction commanders: Mysterious Warrior, Hancock, and Regina. And so this is ostensibly what the patch is about. I think there's other stuff in the patch. We'll get to that later. Let's take a look at the new peoples. Okay, this must be Mysterious Warrior. Look at him. He looks pretty mysterious with that mask over there. Okay. So I realized that I made some announcements yesterday based off of the first explanation that I had as to what the comms were. You know, it was just like the first, like, very, very basic stuff that came out on WeChat. Since then, they post on Facebook, and when they post on Facebook, it always makes a little more sense, you know, versus, like, the crappy, like, you know, Google Translate versions of the updates. So I understand that some things might have changed. Number one of the things that I'm looking at is already right off the top, at the very top, it says obtain from the faction reward box. You see that right up at the top? Versus someone like Stella that says when Nixa reaches revered, received from Warpgate with probabilities. So this is something new that they are adding in, that the way that you obtain this is not through the Warpgate. You obtain this through faction quests somehow. There were some notes yesterday that they're like when you hit 80 faction quests or something, you could choose a box. So we'll get to that. Let's look at the commanders and then we'll take a look at that box. So his first skill is Dual Blades, 30% chance to trigger before action, makes the target and another random enemy unable to trigger skills and Star Jewel effects, and reduces their dodge by 1.5% for 1 round. So the dodge reduction is at the same level of Gilly's dodge reduction that Preemptive does, right? 1.5% scaling per round, which is, you know, it's nice. But, you know, knocking off 90% dodge, many cases doesn't really end up doing much. That is not the real operant thing in this skill. The operant thing in this skill, of course, is not only does it make that slot unable to, well, that slot and a random other slot, unable to use gems, but also they can't use skills. So it's a mixture of Gilly's Preemptive and Robin's Chain. So this, and the fact that okay, look, this could occur every single time that you have that your slot triggers. So unlike Gilly, what Gilly does, Gilly gives you an entire round to do some mayhem, but they can still use their skills. What this does is it looks like this is a skill that's gonna come up more often throughout the fight, so it is more relevant past that first turn or past that first round. And you know, whether or not skills or battles last a round anyway, whether or not battles last a round, you know, that's a whole philosophical discussion as to how you should be building out your comms. Regardless of, this does give him some extra utility. And the fact that that hits 2 tiles is a really big deal here. So I was kind of worried that this would be a nothing commander, but it does seem like people are going to start using him, and the more options we get, to be honest, the more people are just going to experiment with stuff. I think the fact that it does not hit every single slot means that, you know, it's not something, it doesn't seem OP, it's not something that you could rely on. It's only a 30% proc rate, but we might see some pretty big server lords running this. Alright, enough about the first skill. I'm going to go through every friggin' skill like this. Double Edge. Chance to trigger before action. We understand that this is a 100% chance to trigger. If the attack hits the target, deals damage to the target again by percentage of the attack damage. We understand that this is from what was announced, is a 100% proc rate. It happens every single time that Mysterious Warrior goes. And If it hits, then it does 1.5% per level damage again. So you're looking up to 90% when this is up to 60. So it will do the same amount, the same kind of damage as, say, a Mysterious Wind proc. But this will not, it does not look like this will allow additional skills to proc or gems to proc. So it's just a way of doing essentially double damage. If you can ensure a hit here, it's like getting a Gemini proc again. Very cool. And then, of course, the Awakening. Okay. Then we got Hancock. Hancock looks disturbed. He's got some... Look, this Mysterious Warrior doesn't seem like he's got a lot of flavor to me. Well, he's got some purple stuff, but Hancock has seen some shit. Right? Hancock is from the streets. He can't afford 2 sleeves or human arms. All right. Anyway. Feral Strength, 30% chance to trigger before action. All enemy units' attack and defense decrease by 1.5% per level until the end of the battle. Originally, I had thought that this was OP, like, ridiculous, to the ridiculous level, because, and not like that means that I want to use it, but I've been saying for a while, and a lot of people have been saying for a while, that one thing that is missing from the meta is that walkers do not have a commander that can ignore stats. Like, for example, right, we know that Gilly and Nico can ignore defense, and Nico can also ignore HP, and it says disregarded in the skills, and then we know, like, Vega, right? Vega could do that. Shiat also. So here, I mean, I've been sitting around for a while saying that walkers, unfortunately, don't have their full place in the meta because they don't have an ignore HP or an ignore defense comm, which is so big in the meta right now. However, if you look at the wording for this, let's compare this to something like Breakdown. So, all enemy units attack... I mean, okay, look, before we glaze right the hell over this thing, the fact that it hits all enemy troops seems OP, right? Because, I mean, we know that Breakdown and also non-violent resistance and Sniper, those all hit one slot. This hits all slots. And let's see, defense decreases by 1 point. So attack and defense decreases. So it's not only, it doesn't only hit a defensive stat, it also hits an offensive stat. Why until the end of battle? That's another aspect that is a big issue, right? Because stuff like, look, Nico and whatever, all those comps I'm talking about, they only hit it, it's only for the hit, and then it's gone. But I do not, in discussion with Krylar, I do not believe that this is he told me basically, look, this is different wording, check things out. And I went and I checked things out, and I think he's right. I think this is not the same as an ignore defense skill. Like here, if we take a look at Vega says the attack will hit and disregarded target 40%, because it's at 20%, 40% defense buffs. Okay, fine. That's fine, right? So let's look at Nico. Again, here it says the attack cannot miss and ignores target, blah 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 buffs. And then we've got Gilly here somewhere, right? I'm just showing you what my leadership is on all my comms, really, is what's going on. And here, attack will hit and disregarded target buffs. Okay, so again, we're using that disregarded or the ignore word, right? Here, we don't see that. We see that it will decrease. So that has a different connotation than ignore or disregarded. Disregarded and ignore, we know that it impacts the enemy's defense or the HP stat by being a modifier that you multiplied, so it impacts it multiplicatively. Here, it seems as though it merely it is merely subtractive, or we call additively. So it looks like when you get this up to 60, it's going to subtract 90% of your attack buffs, it's going to subtract 90% of your defense buffs, and what that means is not that it will multiply it and you'll only be left with 10%. Like when you start to build out a comm, you have all this gear that adds on extra percentages. So it appears as though this will just reduce it by that 90%. So like here, if we have like here, look, this Titan provides plus 290.5. So imagine just subtracting 90 from that. So it's a different type of mechanic. It does seem, if you like, on first glance, it does seem OP. But if you think about it, it's not all that bad, because if you think about the amount of times that this would have to trigger in order to really slow the enemy down, this is a slow burn commander. So because of that, this still does not fulfill that spot in the meta that we wanted by providing a commander that can disregard enemy buffs. That's not what this can do. This is a slow burn commander, and it seems almost like what the devs were trying to introduce with Satalia, if I could be quite honest. It's like in the same kind of ballpark, but unfortunately, in my opinion, this still misses the mark, and it doesn't give Walker players what they needed. Now look, for the infantry players, this comm is just gravy, and we could try and use it, and we could try and work it out and figure out strategically how are we going to deploy the dual blades skill the best in order to have a real impact. And look, the double-edged fight. Look, doing more damage for infantry is always great. But when it comes to this Commander Hancock, based on what we needed the first skill to do, we needed the first skill to just disregard. We needed it to be a 40% hit skill, a sure hit, and we needed it to disregard between 1.5% and 2% per level of either defense or HP would be, ideal, to be quite honest. But it doesn't do that. And so this is a slow burn commander. People are going to build it out like a tank. Next is Feral Instinct. We know this to be a 100% skill as well. Triggers when battle begins, very much like Gilly's Preemptive. All allied units receive a shield that absorbs damage equal to a percentage of their total HP till the end of the battle. Can only be triggered once. I believe that we heard that at 60%, this would be 12% of their HP. Again, this cements further that this is a tank commander. This is a slow burn commander. It is not the hard-hitting comm that Walkers needed, unfortunately. And they're still stuck with just Pictor as their hardest-hitting comm. And the third one... Okay, so that's like some kind of degenerate, like, meth addict. This is some kind of ninja. Ninjas are always safe in space, right? In space game, just throw Cyber Ninja in there. And now we have... who I think is the coolest looking one of the bunch. It's Regina, and she is an air comm, and she looks like she is some kind of stylized hyper baseball player, which I think is pretty cool. I think that there haven't been enough stylized commanders lately. I think that generally what Seven Pirates has been doing is that they have been they've basically just been, like, ripping off other IPs and just, like, trying to, translate them somehow to Arc of War. I don't think that's really creative. What I think is cool, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I just don't know this IP, but what I think is cool is doing stuff like this and trying to tell a story with that commander. So, anyway, again, we know that on base is a 30% hit, 30% skill, and, I'll tell you, spoiler alert, Regina is going to be the most interesting one here, and we're going to have to figure out exactly how to use her. So until the Initiator's next attack, all allied units stay in on-base state. On-base is the name of the skill. Taking 0.5 reduced damage. The effect can stack. I'm not sure if originally this was told to us as though it would be also some additional... Nope, this was it. Okay. So, this is very much like Roger's skill, right? This is like defensive stance at 60%. This is going to be 30% reduced damage. And it can stack, so if it goes 3 times, then you're like almost friggin' immune. If it goes 4 times, you're immune. What does Rogers stack at? Is it 0.5%? Where do I got that guy? Yeah, okay. So the only difference, it seems like, between on base and defensive stance is 50%, right? Because the The trigger rate here is 30% versus Rogers, who is 80%. But where she really becomes interesting is her home run skill. So originally this was teased at a 100% chance to trigger. Then it was released on Facebook as 60% chance to trigger. The other commanders here have a 30% chance to trigger skill and a 100% chance to trigger second skill. So I'm not sure. I mean, I'll be honest, as we go through this is an OP skill. So I'm not sure if they figured that out and they dialed it back and put this at 60%, or if that was a mistake the second time and they really did mean this to be a 100%. Regardless, the attack deals increased damage. Okay, so, and the damage increases additionally if in on-base state. The higher the on-base stacks, the higher the additional damage. So we got this first skill, it's called on-base. It has a 30% chance to proc. We don't know what home run, how many, whether it's 60% or 100% chance to proc. If home run triggers first, it is going to deal at level 60, so this is going to scale at 1% per level. At level 60, it does an additional 60% damage. If you have an on-base stack, or if you triggered on base before, so if the slot that triggers home run previously had this says all allied units. Okay, right. If a slot beforehand had triggered on base, putting the slot that triggers home run into on base status, then you're also going to get an additional 50% damage. So you're going to get the 60% damage of home run, and you're going to get 50%, it seems like, for every on-base stack. This has the capability to do gigantic damage. Now, the one thing that's going to save us is keep in mind, of course, that unlike Rogers, this is not an 80% chance to trigger for on-base. It's 30%. But you got to figure that by the time the first round goes, that this is going to go 4 times, right? Yeah, no, hold up. Let me do some math. It's probably going to trigger 2 times. So, and it might trigger 1 time, it might trigger 3 times, but if you have a great round, let's say it triggers 2 times. If it triggers 2 times, you're going to be doing 160% damage. Now, keep in mind, every time home run procs, the next tile is gonna have the same increased damage, because it also had the same amount of on base, and it might even have more on base. So this is something to consider. I mean, I'm not sure exactly if this is 100. If home run is 100%, this comm is officially OP. Even 60%, this is going to be a very hard hitting comm. And this might be a commander that, I'm just kind of spitballing off the top of my head. This might be a commander that you look at for some of the bosses. They might be looking at running some penetration equipment with that. So your Regina might be a penetration expert. Penetrate with Regina. Okay. So how do you get this thing, right? How do you get this thing? So we've got 60 medals. It's pointing out here. Let's see, any ACOM is going to say 60 medals, right? Any base one, right? Yeah, 60 medals. Okay, so let's take a look at faction quests. And there we go. So once you hit your 80 faction quests, you're going to be able to choose either your Nixa chest or 5 mysterious warrior medals, and you're gonna need what do you need, 6 of them, I guess it sounds like, or no, I guess you need 12 of these, right? Because that's gonna give you 5 and you need 60, or 5 flower of flower of lives. Look, that's awesome. It's very hard for free-to-play players to get some of those items, to get some of those A-class materials. Personally, Personally, I think that they should just abolish the A-class materials and make the A-cobs and the S-cobs used for Awakened materials just more of the regular materials. Like, make them take, 5 or 10, whatever it is. But, at any rate, that's another video. Faction tasks are back, people. Start doing the faction tasks. And I guess you're going to be switching around which factions you're in, right? And, check it out. I mean, I can't wait. I gotta be quite honest with you guys. Look, Mysterious Warrior looks cool, but I really cannot wait to see Regina. I can't wait to see this Regina in action. Alright, guys, thanks for joining me here tonight. Whatever. You guys know the drill. Go check out the Arc of War shiznit. Figure out what changed. Let everybody know what changed, and let's all look at this Regina.